How long should your job interview last? It all depends on the industry and the role, as well as on a couple of other factors. So I'm going to break that down for you so that you get an idea of how long to aim for in your interviews. In case you don't know me, I'm Dahlia. What I do is I help professionals get out of unfulfilling jobs and into highly paid work that they love. So we do a lot of interview practice together. I've also had over 22 different jobs, so I've done a lot of different types of interviews. And here's the ballpark you want to be aiming for. Most interviews, on average, are about 45 minutes long. But of course, that's just an average. It all depends. 45 minutes does tend to be a bit of a sweet spot in terms of allowing enough time for both sides to get to know each other without it dragging on and on and on and just starting to get a bit tiring. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that just because your interviews are not exactly 45 minutes long that something is going wrong, because there are, like I said before, other factors to consider. Some interviews last anywhere from 15 minutes to several hours, especially if, for example, they're giving you a tour around the building or introducing you to other teams. So here are a couple of time estimates. If it's just a screening interview, that can usually last only 5 to 15 minutes, and it's usually done by a recruiter or a human resources assistant. So it's not usually done by that big decision maker. Meanwhile, if it's just a phone interview, it might last between 15 and 45 minutes, but if it's an in-person interview or a video call interview, usually it might last from 30 minutes to an hour and a half, obviously depending on the depth of questions and how you're getting along. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a moment. And then a group interview is when the hiring manager and usually their assistant meets with multiple candidates at once. And that can last up to an hour depending on the size of the group. But you really want to make sure that you always leave extra time after an interview in case it goes longer. For example, I've had a number of interviews that were scheduled to last just 30 minutes, but we ended up talking for a good hour. And that's actually a good sign. Whenever this has happened with me, I've always landed the job, because what happens is that they just plan 30 minutes, they have their 5 set questions, but then I start asking them questions, and then I start providing some ideas for them and feedback from what I've noticed about their, I do communication, so I'll have a look at their website and how they're communicating, what their products are, and I'll give them feedback about that and already start discussing ideas, discussing the future and what I would do for them. You want to be having a true heart-to-heart conversation and not just answering their question, giving a canned answer, and not having that back and forth. So if you do get to that, then it is a bit tricky to fit all of that in, like a real heart-to-heart discussion, in less than an hour. However, if you've already been speaking to them for a while, then 15 minutes could be all that's needed to seal the deal. And that has also happened to me before, where I've been speaking to my future boss for a while, networking, sharing my ideas for their business, and then when I came in to meet the higher-ups, all that was needed was like maybe not even 15 minutes, maybe just 5 minutes to seal the deal and to get hired. And that's what I like to call preeminence, which is where they've already gotten to know you before the interview, whether in person or online, via your LinkedIn profile, your portfolio, the kind of exchanges you've been having back and forth. Preeminence can also come from other people talking about you. And that is really the way to brand yourself in the new economy. It's to create that preeminence so you're not like other candidates just applying for the job, showing up for the interview, and going through the process as a nobody. You should be a known entity. They should already be excited to meet you even before you get to that interview stage. Another question I get asked a lot is, how long should my answers be? The right length for interview answers obviously depends on what the question is and how many elements you need to tick off in order to answer that question. But answers for super basic intro questions should just be about 30 to 90 seconds, while answers for more behavioral questions, where they're asking, what would you do in this type of situation or that type of situation, you want to aim for at least 2 minutes, but not much more than 4 minutes. Make sure you're practicing your answers in advance so that they don't get too long, but also not too short. And you want them to be really catchy with a strong hook and a clear conclusion, right? You always want to make sure that whatever answer you give, it's helping them see your potential and see the value you're going to provide. You're not just looking to tick boxes and say, okay, I've said this, I've said that. You really want to be showcasing your value and making sure in every answer that you give, you're actually branding yourself. You're creating the image that they have of you. The reason I keep emphasizing that is because so many people in their interview answers, they just aim to tick a box like, okay, I have answered the question, done. But it's not about answering the question. It's really about creating that image of the high value professional that you want them to see you as. I hope that answers your questions about interview lengths. And if you are struggling with not being sure whether your interviews are as good as they could be, then watch my video about how to be confident in interviews. I will link to that, and let me know below what was the length of your last interview. And oh yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe to this channel because I have lots more videos coming out about how to brand yourself for the new economy as a high value professional. So I will see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.